Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Tuesday, January 30th, 2024. This isn't exactly the video I hoped it might be. The reason I'm hanging out in my robe and my PJs is yesterday at work in the afternoon I started getting really lethargic. Like, I was sitting at my desk, I think I fell asleep for a little bit. I couldn't bear the thought of getting up a couple of times, and tasks that I usually do without thinking, like I push book trucks around, that sort of thing, it just took a lot more effort to even do them. And I'd been dealing with a sore throat since the morning, so I knew something was wrong, and so after work I went to Walgreens, picked up some medicine and a COVID test, and I've had a fever ever since, basically, so I might be home for the next couple days. I'm not sure how it's going to go, and today I've mostly been lazing around trying to sleep a little bit, which I guess is good, although it would be nice to get in a little bit of reading and writing as well, but obviously I should privilege, I guess, sleeping and taking my acetaminophen and drinking lots of fluids. I hope you liked my action shot there, but anyway, I do have some books to talk about. Starting, as always, with reading a short story from the literary magazine I'm currently reading from, which, as of the start of this month, has been American Short Fiction, the Summer 2023 edition. And this week's short story is Door One by Max Ross, which is my favorite so far of the three. That's exciting. This is a story about a young male protagonist, or a 30-something protagonist, who is sort of just trundling through life. He works as a copy editor on a contract for a certain corporate company, but basically writing communications for various objectives they have, deliverables they have. And there's this new boss who comes into his life, the editor who looks over his stuff, and she's the sort of person who's kind of his opposite. She's very perky, she's very, corporate jargon and all of that, and she's never fully satisfied with his work. And so it's a little bit of a strain, as she's sort of starting to penalize him for what he's doing, and he's worried about his contract renewal coming up. And then meanwhile at home, his wife is pregnant and expecting, and he's not really connecting to that very well. He doesn't really necessarily feel like it's real, and he's not entirely sure why. But as the story goes on, it just sort of starts to coalesce for him about the fact that he lives a very passive sort of life. It's almost like he's outsourced his life. He was a journalism student back in the day, and wasn't really able to get one of the shrinking jobs in journalism, and they of course don't really pay that well, so he ended up going into communications work, and has just sort of been treading water, as it were. And even his marriage is really described as they're mostly apart and private, and they just, their marriage is mostly like watching baking shows together. They hang out, but they aren't very, effusive or anything like that. So it's just an interesting character study, I thought, and I just thought it was incredibly relatable. I mean, for a few reasons. I mean, I personally also went to journalism school, although I always knew I wanted to get into communications. Journalism was too intimidating for me, even if it weren't for the monetary concerns. But like him, I know people from my class who are, getting bylines in major, new publications now. And also just something that I really liked about this is, the focus on work life, and the realities of corporate life. And actually it's something I'm thinking about for a short story I hope I might be drafting later this year if I get through my fantasy project writing. And so I really appreciated this particular take on it too. So I guess in a way this was a right story at the right time, but I felt like he really did well with this character and the various parts of his life, and just sort of getting to understand who he is as a person. It went down well. I'm also continuing through my annual read of the Best American Short Stories, edited by Heidi Pitlor, and the 2023 edition's special editor is Min-Jin Lee. I only have a couple of stories left now before I'm officially finished. But of everything I've read since last time, I think the story that intrigues me the most is My Brother William by Danica Lee. In a way, it's funny, the main character of her story is a journalist who actually has cracked a lot of interesting stories. But it's a story where the central relationship is between the narrator and her brother William, and they live very different lives, and sometimes they come together like for big emotional moments, and then they live a lot of time apart as well. And there's an interesting message going through it about like the meaning of reality, virtual reality, and physical reality, and what's more real, and what is the way to get the most out of life. And it feels like, this main character, the journalist, is saying we need to engage with the real world, and William's actually someone who has these secret like IT jobs, and he seems to be more in the sense of, you can get a lot out of the virtual world. So I just remember when reading that story, I liked how the characters came together and were also apart. And there was a lot of intimacy in that, even though I'm not exactly sure where I would come down on the line of what is real. I'm probably a little more in William's camp than I should be, but the narrator might have also made a good case to stay in the physical world as well. The first novel I finished this month is Blade of Dream by Daniel Abraham. I have to show it to you a weird way because the library already yoinked back my copy. Anyway, Blade of Dream is his second novel in a fantasy series about this second world's city called Kithamar, which is a city that's just like full of vibrant life to it. There's cutthroats and criminals, and there's also, blue cloak sort of guards and politicians. And actually, when it came to the first story, Age of Ash, I was kind of interested in the characters, but I was saying in that I kind of wish the story was more political, and I'm more interested in following political movers and shakers, and that kind of was what this story was. Because the main characters we're following along in this is Gareth, who is the son of a merchant family who ultimately decides to abandon his family aspirations and join the Blue Cloaks, and then Elena Saul, who is in line for the throne of Kithamar. There's a lot of intrigue about there's something rotten in the state of Kithamar beyond the normal stuff. Like, of course, a lot of this book and the last book, too, had to do with, criminal activity in town. But there's also, like, a magical something that's wrong with the ruling class that Elaine is getting closer to once her father actually ascends to the throne. And she and Gareth actually meet by chance before they both, change their lives, or their lives are upended, and they have like a romantic night together, and it's always in the back of their heads that maybe they could, try to find each other again, even though it wouldn't really work with their, current realities to have a relationship. They still kind of want to. But I feel like that's the strength of Abraham's novels are these character moments and the decisions that the characters make. Like, part of the reason Gareth leaves his family is he realizes his parents' marriage isn't what he thought it was, and his father was more cruel than he thought it was, and he decided he wanted something else, and not to be sort of wedged into a political marriage. He wanted to follow his heart, but at the same time, joining the Guard isn't really, he had friends in the Guard, but, he really just wanted to find a new avenue, so it wasn't a perfect fit either, but mostly he was just thinking about Elaine. And meanwhile, Elaine kind of is, doesn't have a lot of choices because of, who she is, and so in a way her story's a little more passive because she's mostly trying to figure out what's going on with her dad, who's getting more secretive. And she also does, want a little something for herself, so, there's a little push and pull, but ultimately when she and Gareth re-find each other, they do, come together again, and it's kind of a bit of safe harbor, and he helps her out with some of these things. I think the characters were really fun and really interesting. I kind of think they're more interesting than the magical stuff, really. Although I do think the love affair was a little bit, insta-lovey, but I might be being too nitpicky with that, because I really did enjoy all the character stuff a lot. It was just really fun, and I just loved all the detailed world building, and it's strange that, the magical stuff I connected with the least, but all of like these, little details of life on the ground, and, what it is to be a blue cloak, and what it's like to be a temple acolyte, like another one of the minor characters, and how people perceive religion. That stuff was a little more interesting to me. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure where this story is going next. I do know there's a lot of big questions that kind of still need answers and wrapping up. I think we'll be following new characters, perhaps, because that's what it's been like for the first two books. But I'm intrigued. I'll look forward to it when it comes out. But in the meantime, I guess this was a good time for me to read this book after all, because in fact, I think this would make a good comp for one of the members of my beta reading group. And actually, this month we're critiquing his query letter and some of that stuff. So I think I might go ahead and suggest that he look into these two books, you know, to perhaps use as a comp, you know, because his story also has a really rich secondary world city, which also begins with a K, coincidentally, and he's also following a variety of different characters from, you know, different avenues and different parts of society around. So there's some similarities, and there is also some magic stuff, although I think his magic stuff's a little different. But anyway, I'm looking forward to suggesting this to him and seeing what he thinks. And this next book was sitting at the bottom of my screen as it was, so I'll just show it to you now. My current audiobook is Sam by Allegra Goodman. This is a book that was actually on my anticipated reads ever since last January when it came out, and I've been kicking it down the road ever since, so I definitely didn't want to go any further without starting it. I was a little wary because even though Allegra Goodman is one of my favorite authors, I feel like her last couple books have kind of missed the mark for me, or well, particularly her last book before this missed the mark for me, and this is also very different from some of her usual fare. It's a coming-of-age story about this young girl named Sam. I'm just a little ways into it so far, but Sam comes from a broken home. Her father kind of left the family because he was this itinerant traveling magician and artist, and then her mother got involved with another guy who has some drinking and anger problems, and so he's been in and out of their lives, and Sam has a half-brother from that relationship. So Sam feels bit at loose ends. Her mother is, you know, really strained and stressed out and always working, and there's not a lot of money. But Sam gets into rock climbing after spending a day at the fair with her dad and, you know, going on one of those attractions. So that seems to be a major thing that's pulling her through her adolescence, is trying to become the best she can at that. And in the meantime, you know, her parents are coming in and out of her life in various ways, and friends are coming in and out. And I'm actually enjoying it more than I thought I would, but at the same time, it does feel kind of surface level, but I'm probably overanalyzing it. Like, I don't know, sometimes I worry that I can't just enjoy books anymore because I overanalyze them, and I should just say that, you know, maybe it's a little bit dramatic or something, but you know, it holds my attention, and I like the character and what's going on with her. I am, I guess, a little wary about what I've heard about, you know, how the story wraps up when she's in high school, but you know, that's also a problem. You know, it's like I'm outsourcing my own opinions about what I'm reading to these reviews and things that maybe I shouldn't read until afterwards. I don't know, but I don't think it'll be my favorite of Allegra Goodman's novels, but I'm enjoying it, so that's all I should say. Going back to novels I have finished, I just finished On Division by Goldie Goldboom yesterday, my page 112 tag novel, which I also really enjoyed. This is a novel that takes place in Hasidic Brooklyn. It's an ultra-Orthodox or Haredi community, and our main character is Suri, who's a 57-year-old, soon-to-be great-grandma who finds herself surprisingly pregnant. And for some variety of reasons, she doesn't necessarily want to come out and say she is, because, you know, this is a pretty regimented community, and she's, like, you know, not in the socially acceptable range of childbearing, and also, you know, she already did that part. She's already had multiple children, and, you know, it's the part of her life when, you know, she's supposed to be able to move on to other things, and her husband Yiddle as well. But, you know, it is what it is. But there's other things at play too. One of the major ones is one of her sons, Lipa, was a gay man who committed suicide a couple years before, and she's, you know, traumatized about that and traumatized by her own response to his homosexuality and the families and what that did. So it kind of like binds together telling her husband about the twins versus talking openly about Lipa. And so this is a really fascinating book in how it deals with the Hasidic community, because it's not, extremist in one way or the other. There are some positive things about the community aspects and, having, a sense of purpose and of belonging and a focus on family, but at the same time, when you go outside the lines, there can be complications with that. And there's a general culture, I think, of, judgment and over-judging people for, not fitting convention. But then there's also, this ongoing trauma from the Holocaust, because so many of the Hasidic communities lost family in the Holocaust, and both Suri and her husband Yiddel had their, direct family who were murdered in the Holocaust, and they have personal memories from Hungary, and so it was interesting to get, that particular Jewish Ashkenazi association from Hungary, because all of the specific, shtetls and, centers of Jewish life were slightly different, so I was seeing some different spellings than I'm used to, and so that was interesting too. So I ultimately thought this was a really interesting book. I know it probably would annoy a fair amount of people because, the major crux is you need to tell your husband that you're pregnant, and she puts that off and off and off and off and off. And I think that would get to some readers a fair bit, but I guess I was willing to go with it so long as she was doing some interesting things on the side. I guess I liked the Lipa stuff, and another thing she did was she actually got involved in the hospital, which I guess she had to make an excuse for why she was going there all the time, so she told her husband that she was, helping to visit sick people, and then she ultimately ended up helping the midwife and talking to other Hasidic patients, because there's a large Hasidic community there, and they do well talking to one of their own. So it was that interesting line where she was being really useful, but at the same time that's one of those things that's not conventional in the community either, but it actually was very helpful in the hospital. So yeah, I really feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, and some three-dimensional characters and situations, and I know the author, Goldie Goldboom, is Hasidic herself, but she's also involved with an LGBT group who they support Haredi queer Jews, so it's which I guess is a major is a major reason she wanted to write Lipa into this book, and his relationship with his mother. So yeah, I just really appreciate just how nuanced this book was. So yeah. And finally, I haven't started this yet, but I want to, at least before the end of the month. This is Empress Orchid by Anchee Min, which is one of the books that's been on my Goodreads TBR for the longest. I'd call it my top of the Goodreads resolution to read the books that have been on my Goodreads TBR the longest. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I found this book through a Book Riot article several years ago, and then added it to my list. It's a historical fiction novel about China's last empress, so fun new subject for me to end my January reading with, and maybe I'll report back next month about what I think about it. In the meantime, that about covers it for me now. I should probably stop speaking now and preserve my voice and get to editing this video, which hopefully shouldn't take me too long, and maybe I'll go sleep for a bit after that. We shall see. I do hope to be back on this channel imminently for my monthly book haul video, which should be pretty short. I don't have much to share this month, so won't be too much of a production, but hopefully the books will be of interest. In the meantime, I hope you all stay healthy out there and take care of yourselves. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.